in there, and just up the street was Doug's facility, which was ShowScan, which was a special process, 65mm film at 60 frames per second, which is 2.5 times regular frame rate. So you are seeing things much, much faster than you're used to seeing. Well, Doug has gone on from there, and he has produced a whole new process for his film Ufotog, which will be here on Sunday. And I hope that you'll be here to see it, because it's going to be incredible. That's all I can tell you, really. Please welcome Douglas Trumbull.
Intrepid moviegoers. Let's see. I want to thank the whole staff of the Seattle Cinerama Theater for inviting us here, inviting me to the Science Fiction Film Festival. That was where it originally started. Come to the film festival, we're going to show some movies that you may have worked on. I said, yeah, that sounds good, but I want to try to create a thread of an idea that will lead up to the Ufotog film that we're going to be showing on Sunday. And I'll try to explain what that thread is. ShowScan was a 65mm, 70mm print, 60 frame per second giant screen process, really designed for screens like this. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about me as a director. There's all kinds of different movie directors that come at their craft from many different angles. Some are really good at romantic comedies, some are good at cop chase thrillers, some are good at science fiction, some are good at love stories. I just happen to be a geek. And ever since I had the really great pleasure to work with Stanley Kubrick on 2001: A Space Odyssey, and he was trying to make this enormously immersive experience. He never said the word immersive. It was never really kind of that up front. And he started stripping away dialogue, plot, conflict, all the normal conventions of cinema, and going more and more toward this immersive experience so that you would feel like you were in space, you were in the Stargate, you were in another dimension, et cetera, rather than the normal convention of third-person cinema, where the camera is a voyeur that's watching other people kill each other, hate each other, all the stuff of regular movies. And he talked about that a lot during production. And I developed a very close relationship with him, solved a lot of problems for 2001, and had a ball doing it. Screens. And it was a really cool way for me to get to learn the craft of directing, how to deal with actors, how to deal with story, how to deal with editing and cinematographers, and put a movie together. And I had a really good time making that movie. Nevertheless, I was yearning for this spectacular, immersive follow-on to 2001. And by that time, the movie industry was multiplexing itself into oblivion, in my opinion. And all the big theaters like this, or almost all of them, except maybe this one and a few others, got chopped up into multiplexes. So the giant screen went away, 70mm film went away, and that palette of immersive cinema potential kind of went away. There were very few 70mm films made since then, and none of those really were like Stanley Kubrick or David Lean epics. They were kind of conventional films made in 70mm. So I started a company with Paramount Pictures called Future General Corporation, which was a research and development company. I talked them into giving me some money to explore the future of cinema and the future of entertainment. And in a very short period of time, with a bunch of little skunkworks pals of mine, we set up a little laboratory down in Marina del Rey, California, and started toying with all the film formats that had ever been shot with it. We projected with all kinds of projectors on all kinds of different screens. We said, this is really not happening. Really, that doesn't make that big of a difference. And then the question, well, what do you do now? And so we haven't explored frame rates. So we started shooting test films at 24, 36, 48, 60, and 66, and 72 frames a second. And we had a big aha moment that high frame rates was a key to the future of what cinema could become as an immersive medium. So out of that came ShowScan. Also, at the same time, we developed the simulator ride, which was the whole idea of coupling a movie with a flight simulator. which later became attractions like the Back to the Future ride that I worked on. And an interactive character-driven 3D video game, and Magicam, which was a virtual technology for superimposing live actors into miniature sets using green screen in real time. Paramount, in their wisdom, decided that none of this had any future whatsoever, closed it all down, kind of lost their heart, and then all the management got fired. And so, just prior to that, the chairman of Bludorn, who through Gulf and Western Industries owned Paramount, came to a screening of this film I made called Night of the Dreams, which was a short 10-minute experiment in showscan, but it was a dramatic experiment with sets and props and characters and dialogue. And he turned to the management of Paramount, and I'm not going to mention their names because it would be too embarrassing, and said, "Gentlemen, if we don't make a movie in this process, we're fools. This is fabulous." And at that time, we'd also been showing it to all the Actors Guild, the Directors Guild, the Society of Motion Picture Television Engineers, producers, directors, writers, and everybody loved showscan. It was really a fantastic upwelling of enthusiasm for it. And so we embarked on creating Brainstorm, because the rule that Charlie Bludorn set out, he says, part of the movie should be in your super process, but part of the movie should be conventional. That way, the audience will see the difference. You'll telegraph the difference. And maybe we could save some money in the meantime, because we don't need to shoot it all in 70mm. So that was our mandate. So that was what drove us in writing the screenplay for this, which was to construct a story whereby it made sense to cut to the point of view of a character, or the memory of a character, or the experience of a character, which is first person, which is completely separate from the conventional cinematic third person. So this movie is cutting back between first person and third person all the time, and you'll see that very clearly. Problem with the industry, and even though Paramount was interested in making the first movie and had done all kinds of economic studies, they figured they couldn't make any money unless there were about 2,000 theaters equipped to show it. We went to exhibitors and said, well, would you convert your theater to this projector? And they said, well, only if all the studios will make movies this way. So it was a catch-22. I couldn't get it to happen. And I finally had to capitulate. I could just see that showscan wasn't going to go anywhere in the movie industry. I could apply it to special venues, theme parks, attractions, rides, and stuff like that. But for feature films, it was a no-go. And I had to back off and reluctantly agree. I had to actually take it away from Paramount to another studio, which is a very, very long story. But I took it to MGM and talked them into shooting part of the film. All the point studio were in 70mm, 65 negative. And all the conventional part of the movie are 35mm, 1:6:6 aspect ratio. And the conventional parts of the film are monophonic sound, and the widescreen parts of the film are stereo sound. That was all I could pull off within the confines of the existing movie industry. So we wrote the screenplay, I directed this film, it was all going terrifically well for a movie until Natalie Wood died, and that was like completely it for me. It turned out that the studio really didn't want to get this movie made for various completely nefarious reasons. The studio was broke. They filed a fraudulent insurance claim. They fired me before even asking if I could finish the film without Natalie Wood's presence, which I could easily. I blocked myself in the editing room for 2 days to prove it. They wouldn't look at it. We got into a big fight with the studio. I was saved by Lloyd's of London, the insurance company. We ultimately finished the film, but it finished me in Hollywood because I said, I'm not ever working in this town again. It's a miserable industry. You guys are creeps, and I'm not having any fun. I decided to just put my directing career on hold and see what else would happen. I moved to Massachusetts, set up shop, formed a little company there, and immediately along came the Back to the Future ride, which other people that I knew well had screwed up. But it was based on my original invention of the simulator. So it was you in a DeLorean car going into the world of Back to the Future, the ultimate first-person experience. This was totally cool. I don't know, have any of you ever seen that ride? Oh, that's pretty good. So the idea of Back to the Future ride, from my standpoint as a filmmaker, was that you are going to get ripped out of your cinema seat and thrown into the screen. You're going to enter into the movie and you're going to interact with the movie. You're going to feel it, hear it, smell it, and every possible sense that you've got is going to be overwhelmed with this immersive experience. So it was hugely successful. Made a ton of money for Universal. They put it in all 3 of their theme parks. And that was proof to me that I was on the right track. Tomorrow we're going to do Close Encounters in 2001 again. And then on Sunday we're going to show you this demo film that we just completed last week. I mean, this actually movie is still a work in progress, because wonderful thing about digital movies is there's never a negative. You can keep puttering with it forever. Anyhow, we showed it here earlier today for the first time. There's a beautiful top-of-the-line new Christie Digital Mirage 4K 35 projector in this theater that runs at 120 frames a second in 3D at 4K resolution. This is magnifying everything that you can possibly do with a movie. Higher resolution, and the resolution that we're seeing at 4K digitally is superior to any 70mm movie I ever saw, including IMAX. The high frame rate is better than ShowScan ever was. And the 3D, I've done my best as a filmmaker to make the 3D really comfy to look at, so you're not going to go through any eye strain. And there's enough brightness to where it's really natural to watch. So I hope any or all of you can come to Sunday at 12:30, 3 or 5:30. We're going to show this movie. You may even show it twice each time. I'll talk about it. I'll talk about why we made it, how it came out of the whole Brainstorm experience, how I'm thinking about making movies in a different way, which reflects all the way back to 2001 in Kubrick, the whole idea of first person. So that'll be its own thing. So anyhow, when you watch this movie, which we're going to show, I will talk about it a little bit afterwards and do Q&A. I'll actually do some Q&A right now before we roll. But you have to kind of use your imagination, and when you see Ufotog on Sunday, you'll be able to click your imagination into gear and say, oh my God, that shot of so-and-so, Louise Fletcher in Brainstorm. Doing that in retrospect is kind of a stretch, but that's what I'm asking you to think about. Don't think too critically about this movie. It's already dated, as all movies do. I would direct it differently if I was making it now, blah, blah, blah. But I'm proud of the movie nevertheless. Proud that we actually got it finished, and proud that it was a stepping stone in my career toward immersive cinema, because I was trying to do some amazing things with 70mm effects that would hold up on a big screen. What's wrong with taking you to heaven and hell at the end of the movie? That was fun. How many?
Projector doesn't do those things.
No, but they're working on it. High dynamic, extended dynamic range is in the pipeline. Laser projection is in the pipeline. Higher color gamut is in the pipeline. Higher frame rates are in the pipeline. And I'm working very closely with Christie and Dolby, who they see a vision for what movies can be soon. They're not there right now. For instance, this projector, the Mirage 4K 35, 4K 35, yes, 35,000 lumen projector, really comes out of the flight simulation industry. And they're special venues kind of industry, not from the cinema division, which is a separate division. But the cinema division has now realized that, oh, we're onto something. So we collaborate with both divisions of Christie. They're both very helpful. And so this process of showing our movie here in what we call the Magi process, is the name I gave this process, of 4K, 120 frame 3D on a giant screen, just is going to continue to get better and better and better. If you see it, you tell me if you think the color gamut's adequate or should be more or whatever, because it will get better. I'm not embarrassed about it at all. It's the best picture I've ever seen in my life. And this new territory has the potential to be a first-person experience. And so when you get into the objective of wanting reality, something that confuses your nervous system to what you're seeing is actually real, high color gamut, high resolution, high frame rate, high bit depth, everything, super blacks, everything. You want everything you can get. So there isn't any one magic bullet to getting to hyper cinema. Probably would have had a larger budget for had Natalie Wood lived and we had completed the movie under normal conditions. But there were very nasty, nefarious people at MGM and around them who tried to create the illusion that the movie was impossible to finish without Natalie Wood. And they filed a $15 million insurance claim to that effect. They fired me and everybody on the crew within 5 minutes of her death. They didn't call me up and said, Doug, can you finish the movie? They didn't call me up and say, can we see a rough cut to determine if we need any more scenes from Natalie or not? They didn't even ask. That's what leads me to believe that there was some other issue going on. Nevertheless, I did barricade myself in the cutting room for a couple of days. I did put the film together. I went through the script in detail because I knew everything that we'd already shot. We still had more to shoot. I found 3 scenes that still included Natalie. For example, one of the scenes was a scene where they're driving up to the guy's house. He's in his basement, hooked up to a sex loop. And Natalie Wood and Christopher Walken get out of their Bronco, park it on the curb, rush into the house. And Natalie would have been with Christopher when he goes into the basement to find him. Wasn't around anymore, and I said, well, who cares? I mean, it's not a big omission for her to stay up with his husband, his wife, excuse me, while Christopher goes down in the basement alone. No one thought twice, didn't really matter. There were a couple of more minor scenes like that. I did not have to resort to any fake dialogue, any recutting of the movie, any floppy hat over the shoulder fake doubles, or anything like that. If I had had to do that, I would have abandoned the movie. I had to be able to say to myself and to say to you honestly, this movie is what it was intended, her absence in 3 shots. James was an old buddy of mine, and a lot of thought. He was very young at the time. It was one of his first films. I saw some films that he had done previous to that. I met him. I really liked him. We are lifetime buddies now. And I was so happy with his score for this picture. Have you ever been to a scoring session? It's like the second ultimate trip. You go into a scoring session, there's the big 95-piece orchestra, and they're showing the movie on the wall, and he's playing in sync to the movie with click tracks and everything. It's the most amazing moment in the construction of a movie when finally the music and the picture come together. It's just great. He did a great job. Subsequent to Brainstorm, not almost everybody, but a few people in Hollywood were using our track on their temp music for upcoming movies because everybody loved his music.
This is one of his best scores.
It's one of his best scores. We're mentally, emotionally, and creatively very much in tune. So I'm hoping I can get James to come and do the score for my next film, if I ever get to make a next film. My objective in life is to get back to directing. I've gotten over my problems. I've got this new process. I think I'm the right guy to direct in this process. I'd love to work with James to do the score for this new process. And some experiments are going on right now in the world of sound and music of specially recording the soundtrack, keeping the Atmos sound system in mind, which is really fun because Atmos can be 128 channels of sound. So you have the option of having, one violin over there and one cello over there and the horns back there and the timpani up here and moving everything around dynamically as a spatial envelope of music, for instance. So this movie the Youth Talk movie has been mixed in Atmos, although we're not showing Atmos here. This theater will be converted to Atmos in the fall. So this theater is going to be reborn sometime before Christmas, I would imagine, with a new screen, new sound system, new Christie laser projection system, and all the greatest things, and maybe even more comfortable seats. So you'll have to come back at Christmas time and see whatever. I think Chris Nolan wants to launch, that's all I can say. So I think we ought to just run the movie and I'll get out of the way, and then when it's over, I'll be back. Thank you.